Hi, my name is Sibu, Sibu Sisiwe Malaba, and I was previously the field director for Sonia Chang Diaz's re-election campaign last year, and I transitioned into her office as her legislative aide at the State House. And I got into doing educational nonprofit work, so working for a couple of nonprofits doing development. It's a lot of fundraising, event planning. After that, I realized I didn't want to be stuck in an office writing grants. I found myself, trying to go into the program portion of the organization. So I decided that after 3 years that I'm going to try something new. So I took a step back career-wise, and I said, hey, I'm going to try this. I knew someone who was running for a United States Senate race. That was my first campaign, and they say that some people get the campaign bug, and I did. So I worked on a couple campaigns after that, and then I met Sonia through my campaign work. We connected really great, and she's been a great teacher to me, so I transitioned into her office, and my role is to kind of be the ears on the ground in terms of serving as a neighborhood liaison, and my neighborhoods are Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, and those are pretty massive.
My name is Wally DeGuglielmo. I'm Chief of Staff for State Senator Sal DiDomenico. We represent an area very similar to Senator Chang Diaz. We have the cities of Cambridge, Chelsea, Everett, Charlestown, and part of Alton, Brighton, and the city of Boston. And we also represent currently parts of Somerville, Saugus, and Revere, which we've since lost in redistricting. In my role, I manage our State House office and our staff. I work with the Senator to sort of develop and execute his policy agenda, manage our relationship with the press and sort of all the external affairs and groups that the constituent groups you'll see out there. I started when I was 18 years old. I volunteered on a number of political campaigns, volunteered on city council campaigns, congressional campaigns, school committee, state senate, state rep. I kind of ran the gamut. I had that sort of campaign political bug. But my first job out of college, I actually worked at a nonprofit. Some of you guys are familiar with City Year, one of the pilot AmeriCorps programs. I worked in their development office, and little did I know then that would spawn a 10-year career in the field of development. After that, I worked for a few years for a nonprofit in New York City that raised money for inner-city Catholic schools, and I did all their marketing and communications work. And then I moved back here in 2005, and I worked for 5 years at the United Way of Massachusetts Bay and Merrimack Valley doing development work. I originally managed their life science, healthcare, and education partnerships, and moved on to manage all their regional fundraising activities here and in the Merrimack Valley. So how I got involved with Senator DiDomenico, he and I had worked on a campaign probably 10 years ago. I developed a relationship with him. The opportunity arose, and I made the transition. I had never worked in government before this job. I had worked on dozens of campaigns. I'm a member of the Democratic City Committee in Cambridge. I'm very well versed in this stuff. I've built a lot of relationships. This is my first government job, so I've taken sort of a different path than probably some of the other panelists.
I am Dr. Estrella Luna, and what I do now, I'm part-time as an independent consultant, which is something I've been doing for many years, as well as I spend the other half of my time teaching here at Northeastern University, Salem State, and UMass Boston. My very, very, very first career was actually in education. I was a K-12 educator working in ESL, English as a second language kinds of courses. I grew up in California, Northern California, and then came of age in Los Angeles and lived there for a good decade. And in LA, I left education and I actually went into healthcare, and I was a healthcare administrator working in LA County, one of LA County's community health centers in East LA. And so I was, administration and management. I got my master's degree in public health, focusing on administration, management, and finance, with the idea that, well, I had decided once I had worked in a healthcare facility, I didn't want to be in a position that I really wanted to do the management side of things. And so I, did that for my master's degree. I got the opportunity to start doing to become a director, actually, of a community health and education program in Wilmington, Delaware. And what that job ended up being about was, it was a social justice-oriented kind of project that was about empowering the local community in taking control both of their physical environment and Delaware as a state and Wilmington as a city. So it was, it was social justice oriented, about empowerment, so that folks could actually, the local community could learn how to take control of their community environment in order to support their health. And so I kind of caught that bug, and I actually decided, and really became even more aware of the role of law and policy in creating the conditions for communities to both have control over their environment as well as to have healthy living conditions. And so we moved back to Boston so that I could pursue my PhD in law and policy, which was actually here at Northeastern University. So I got my degree in law and policy, and what that allowed me to do is to take all of the skills that I developed, both as a manager, right, in healthcare management, which, you have to learn about managing budgets and managing people, as a program director of a community-based organization, so, working with communities, working in coalitions, working with, good people like that I'm sitting next to, who are trying to make the world a better place and use law and policy to create that, as well as the teaching piece of it. So that's what I get to do now, actually, is to mix all of those things together.
I'm Mike Boughton. I work at the Boston Bar Association. I first probably got into politics when I was little because my father ran for office in our small town in Connecticut. I took the first job that offered me a job, which was the Boston Bar Association here. I first started in membership, so the Boston Bar Association is a membership of attorneys, about 10,000 attorneys in the city or the greater Boston area, and they sort of represent the collective bar, so the interests of lawyers across the city on a range of issues. So I started in membership, and that ranged from handling the memberships of big firms throughout Boston to solo practitioners and things like that. And then shortly after I started there, the position in government relations opened up, and for about a year I sort of worked both a little bit, helping out. There was only one person on staff in government relations, and slowly I transitioned into a full-time position just in GR. And what I do now is I work in just a two-person department, and we sort of serve as the voice of the greater Boston Bar to the State House, to the city, to the federal government. Also, we coordinate with our counterparts at the Massachusetts Bar, who represent greater Massachusetts, a lot of Western Mass people in that organization as well. We coordinate with the ACLU and other interested parties on things that are of interest to lawyers. Our perennial thing now, as with most people that lobby or advocate at the State House, has to do with budgets. And the line items that we are particularly concerned about are the courts in Massachusetts. Right now we're in the middle of a campaign to sort of raise awareness of what inadequately funded courts, what the effects can be on society, whether that's delays in justice in terms of not giving women who are seeking restraining orders from a battered husband access to a timely decision so that they can get that restraining order, or all sorts of things. Other line items are legal services. In Massachusetts, there's a group of attorneys that work not pro bono. They do this for a living with very small pay, but they provide legal services to people who are indigent, people who have very little means but have serious legal claims, and representation from a lawyer can help alleviate those things, whether it's foreclosure or custody battles, things like that. And then we also advocate for the public defenders in the state and the district attorneys. So those are our main budgetary concerns. And so we advocate at the State House, mostly state government, for those things. What I find interesting about what I do is I work for a membership organization, so it's interesting that a lot of other lobby firms or things like that, they're the advocates, but we sort of facilitate a relationship between our elected officials and the actual lawyers, our members, because they're the experts on the issues. They practice in the courts. They're the ones who practice all the law. They know the regulations. We sort of facilitate that relationship, and we can call on those 10,000 members in advocacy campaigns because they're also constituents. They're when we ask them to go to their state, to the State House, to their representatives and their senators, they live in those districts, they can sort of give the opinion of someone as a voter, which is very helpful for us.
My name is Tim Cummings, and I'm from Burlington, Massachusetts, and a little background about myself. Similar to everyone else who spoke prior to me. I started out in politics just after finishing high school, and probably the point I would want to emphasize to this group is that I could not speak more about the importance of taking advantage of either paid or unpaid internships to actually develop the relationships. What happened in my case is I started out in college my freshman year, bored out of my mind because I'm a type A personality, and I had a couple friends who were in government, and they actually hooked me up with an unpaid internship. From there, I did a couple other internships. By the time I graduated, I had my first job offer working for Congress down in Washington, D.C. I worked for Congressman Dave Camp of Michigan. He's now chair of the Ways and Means Committee. And it was a wonderful experience. And it only happened because my first intern coordinator / mentor was my boss. When I was 17 years old, I happened to call her up January, February of my senior year. And I said, I'm graduating in May, and she said, come on down to D.C., I have a job for you. I spent a couple of years down on Capitol Hill, learning how that all worked, but I spent a bulk of my time in college working on Beacon Hill in the Massachusetts State House, and I wanted to come back to my family and my friends, so after that I came back and took a job with my personal state representative and worked for him for too many years, about 6. And I really got to know the Massachusetts State House. At a certain point in my career, I said I got to pick a topic to actually focus on. Some people focus on higher education, environment, transportation, whatever the case may be. I went back to grad school. I'm an alum of Northeastern. That really helped me refocus how I actually thought about things, changed my frame of mind, how I would approach certain type of urban problems, and that was really beneficial to me actually landing my current job, which is I work for the mayor of the city of Marlborough in the Economic Development Office, and I handle a wide variety of special topics, and my portfolio really includes smart growth management, and in particular adopting some, not to get really into the weeds on this, but essentially adopting public policy that will encourage economic development by allowing certain type of uses on land.